I think there was a time when I went through my divorce and I was on my own with my daughter where I did want to give up. I did. And it was my child. It was the blessing that I've had with my daughter. She has been a constant force of light. And she has inspired me to rediscover not just what life is, but that life is a gift to me and that I'm a gift for life.
Welcome to the Global Indian Podcast, home to the greatest conversations and the official platform for people of Indian origin. Because let's face it, we are everywhere. Thank you for clicking the link and thank you for looking to find out more about this extraordinary voyage. Now, to put it in perspective, you are a single mother, you've got a beautiful daughter, and you've had your third case of cancer that's come back. You'll be taking an operation in 12 days' time, and you have no idea whether you'll live, and if you do survive, the consequences of that. This is the podcast today. It is a remarkable journey, and I'm sure that you've been following via social media the videos that we've been putting out for the entire week. In this conversation, we're joined by Omita, a wonderful individual who tells us exactly what she went through, her experience, and how it shifted and changed her version of now new reality, but also her perception of life. It is an eye-opening podcast for the fact that we plunge into something that is incredibly deep and it profoundly changes you. If you like the work that we do and you want to show a bit of love, it couldn't be easier. Simply go to our website, www.globalindianseries.com, or via the platform that you're listening to this on. Please make sure you share, you like, and you subscribe. Because with your help, not only are we able to bring these stories to life, but we're also getting to shape and change our community for the better, one conversation at a time. I'd like to thank our dear sponsors for their support in this, especially that to shareme.com, the app for all your beauty, fitness, and wellness needs. I thoroughly hope you enjoy this session.
And just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move.
I truly find fascinating about the videos that we had as your run-up is because quite frankly, you know, even when we were speaking in the morning, you get that feeling of, okay, you're going for this, like, everything's going to be well, everything's going to work out well.
Yeah.
But there's that small element that you think, okay, what if?
Yeah.
And so then you're doing this diary, these videos every single morning, these audios, and I'm listening to it and you're sending it over to me. And in some cases, my heart is pounding in my throat because I'm thinking, this is remarkable. You know, you're going through this plunging of the human experience in such a deep, profound way.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I'm thinking, oh man, I really hope I'm not recording this person's last voice or last video, because on one side, it's a privilege. It's like, well, I'm thankful that I'm there. On the other side, it's heart-wrenching, man. It's so it's I'm really glad that I got to play a small part and that you allowed me to be part of that process of yours, because it's real. This is life.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, I think the significance of having your contribution at that specific moment in time, I think really just allowed me to bring so much more depth to the mental and emotional prep that I actually needed to take place in order, I think, to really fully embrace what that experience has brought to me. And that's what was just so wonderful. I literally felt as if arms were being wrapped around me every single moment, because I consciously wanted to just submerge and let go. And you're absolutely right. You know, we, as much as we fuel faith through our fear, like you said, the fear has to become more extent, doesn't it? Otherwise you just can't go you need to like go from one end of the polar, to the spectrum to really understand how far the spectrum goes on the other side, don't you?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about, there's the one part about staying positive and having faith, but I'm not going to lie, and like you said in some of the little videos, I think I think one or two of them, the emotion was a little bit evident. But there was a moment when I came out of surgery where I think, to be honest with you, I mean, there's one other person I think who has bear the brunt of this and come out stronger than me, is my daughter. And
Yeah.
what she went through, literally not knowing if her mum is either going to come back or come back with a voice, and she's on her own, she has no support network at the age of 14. I just feel that was phenomenal for her, to be honest with you. And that's like, and to have had both of these journeys and this expansion of a parent and a child, I think is just such a blessed experience. And that was just another slant of it. But yes, Rajan, it's been so nice to be able to share, to go through this with you. And apologies for any unnecessary pain that came your way.
No, not at all. Do you know what? I think for me, it's a liberating experience, because it kind of goes back to the form of it. It's the fragility of life, that we're there. And we forget, we almost kind of work ourselves in autopilot. And it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this takes place, and you're kind of awashed with emotion and sometimes regret or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
But then all of a sudden you're there, and not only do you take ownership of it, but you did what I think is probably the most powerful, if we were to use the word seva, which is the Indianism of it, that you can have, whereby you share these experiences in a very profound way to say, look, I'm here. This is the second time that I'm going through this. It's cancer.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go for an operation. And I found it from here. And now 12 days later on that journey, on the 12th day, I will get the operation. And literally, it's just a recorded, remarkable journey of the human spirit. It's a human endeavor to say, this is what it means to be alive. This is me questioning, not society, not blaming it on religion or blaming it on government or anything else. It's me saying, actually, what's now important for me as a human being? And what attachment do I provide to my own life, that I take responsibility for it? And actually, I'm going to share it with you as an audience to say, I don't know what's going to happen next. But what I do know is that by you listening to this and watching this and being part of it, it's going to give you a form of strength that you never felt before. And it's, as much as it is spiritual, as much as it's poetic as what you wrote down, it's also, in my mind, probably the deepest prayer that anybody could ever do, because it's true, it's unflustered. There's no BS in and around it. It is, this is my song to the world. This is my, oh man, Omita, honestly, it was,
and I think that's the thing, isn't it? We need that relatability to one another. And like you said, and unless we are willing to share our vulnerability and voice it, how can we really build that empathic and true rapport with one another? It's as simple as that, isn't it? And like you said, I think from a cultural or Indian perspective, I've forever been encouraged to not share and voice, like you said, our deep and darkest phases of life, because of that fear, isn't it, of being judged and not being accepted and being able to belong in a world where we're supposed to be conformed and conditioned. But I think for me, and I've said, because we've had a couple of conversations of late, the fact that it became really even more evident to me that the fact that I'm physically able to speak at that point, before I went for this operation, I was even more powered and fueled just before it. And it's almost like, again, with universal guidance, I was nudged to say, this voice is your biggest element of service and upliftment to everyone. But it was the timeliness of it. So I was given a time frame to be able to think, what do I want to do with this in preparation for the operation? And the voice just said, let me express. And if you look at the irony, my cancers have always been, it's been in the thyroid, the neck area where the voice, sits. So clearly for me, my body was saying to me, this is what we need to release. This is what we need to share, isn't it? It's from here. It's your truth. So why not in this way? And I found it exceptionally liberating, doing that. And I know you were forever guiding me through that in terms of expressing those feelings and emotions. And they came out either in a few bits of written words or mostly video. And honestly, it's just a phenomenal experience. And I feel as if I've just started, to skim in terms of who I really am. And just, it is, you're right. I mean, we have to, I think, embrace every day just to more and more understand, you know, what is life? What is living? You know, there's never going to be a finite answer, is there? You know, we're forever just open to it. You know, it's just incredible.
Well, I suppose now we should kick off the podcast, so
Yeah.
we'll make it from there. Why don't we start from the beginning?
Yes.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm Omita Gaikwad, and if I look at giving you a mechanical definition of who I am, I'm a British-born Maharashtrian. I was born in a small town in Scotland, and about how many years? 1977. So you can all work out my age. And from a small family. My late father was a surgeon. Mum was a traditional housewife, and I had an elder brother. So all of our family were still living in the state of Maharashtra in India. And today, from that point of being born, I now see myself as a being of upliftment to others, you know, through my professional and personal life's experiences. And some of those experiences have incorporated periods of adversity, such as cancer, not just once, but twice, which we will hopefully sort of explore a bit more today, along with divorce, single parenthood, periods of depression, unknown periods of depression, should we say, extensive cultural exclusion because of the stigma of what I had, you know, the path I had chosen, and debt, you know, along the way. But on the flip side of that, I could just focus on those little black spots, couldn't I? But have I had a phenomenal journey to experience 40 plus years in this world, to be a mother, and to see how we, I think, as human beings have, in the time I've been here, have evolved. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm introducing myself as just a lover of life today, Rajan, you know, someone who's just filled with immense gratitude to be here right now, to be interacting with you, which is just such a privilege, and to be physically able to speak.
Yeah, because your story, I know we spoke about it just before we kick this off. It's, for me, I think it's absolutely remarkable because, you know, for the build-up of this, you know, you've gone, this is your second bout of cancer. I'm thinking a lot of people would have seen the videos building up to this podcast of where you're running people through day by day your mindset towards going to an operation. But if we go back before that, you know, you said you're a person of Indian origin, and there's a lot of stigma that was attached around you because you're a single parent at one stage. You were there. What was that like for you? What does the word Indianism mean to you, and how's it shifted throughout your life through the experiences that you've had?
That's a really interesting question. When I think of the word Indianism in terms of myself, I mean, my first sort of response is strength. I just feel strength because of what individuals from that part of the continent have had to endure to get to, you know, where they are in life. I mean, the experience I've had of Indianism, so I grew up in a remotely Orthodox sort of family, you know, very passionate about the cultural context and who we are and the heritage we've come from, you know, in the state of Maharashtra. But at the same time, I was incredibly fortunate that my late father was an unbelievably broad-minded individual who was very passionate about ensuring that girls were given that place of equality, you know, in terms of who they can become in this world. But there was an element of conditioning there, obviously, because you know, it was about, you know, you be the best you can be, but make sure you still fit in this category. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? And I think as I grew up, in the years of seeing how family were back in India, you know, what religion and culture was like there, it was interesting because I always say we were a minority within a minority. So being Maharashtrian and in Scotland, so I was born in Scotland, so we grew up with a lot of racism, to be honest with you. I mean, mum wore traditional attire, so she had a sari on, and we were, you know, frequently referred to, you know, especially mum, of the P word, you know, that go back to your own country, etc. And I was being raised, and ironically, the few Asian families that were there, my dad's doctor sort of community, this was just phenomenal. So we were from Maharashtra, one doctor's family were from the state of Punjab, one family were from Pakistan, one were from Gujarat. And it was, that in itself was unity and diversity. And then there was obviously individuals in the small town who were local Scottish white folk. So I literally was, I grew in a pool of warmth and interfaith activity all the time. And all I understood was love. Yet, as growing up from the Maharashtrian perspective, it was very much that the women are there to serve the men. When I used to go back home, as soon as you'd walk into the house, if there's a man in the room, the women suddenly just know which direction to go, and you remove yourself out the room. That was the level of Indianness I experienced from a young age. And obviously, you more than anybody understand, in your early years, it forms part of your culture, isn't it, and your behavioral thinking when you're an older. So I found it exciting, though. I was drawn to that. I thought, wow, women are just, wow, aren't they incredible? They're just all about sacrifice. I found it I was drawn to that, believe it or not, from a young age. And then there's the other parts of our Indianness and our culture. There's the color, there's the music, there's just that warmth, isn't it, that comes with being someone of Indian heritage. And again, it was being sold to me really well, to be honest with you. And I think, but interestingly, because we were a very small family in Scotland, and because of the racism, I did always question, who am I and where do I belong? So we would go to India probably like almost every year, if not every second year, to see the family. I would be in tears every time I left, because we had a big family there, and it was just so much love and interactions. That's what children and kids want, don't they? You just want to bounce off people and feed and learn more about what life in the world is. And I would feel torn, because I used to feel, that's maybe somewhere where I'm accepted, because I could understand the language, I could wear what I wanted to wear, and I wasn't being judged that much, to be honest with you. But it was fun. So I was always torn as to really what my cultural identity was. I know I was told this is who we are, this is where we've come from, but I've never really understood, to be honest with you, what the full definition of being Indian is, until life has presented me with so many opportunities for me to discover, what do I want it to be? Isn't it? It's a choice, isn't it? You can define it how you want to define it. And I think I took a deep dive when I made my decision to become a single parent, go through the divorce. But I won't go into that too much now. But I took a deep dive into really what is religion, what is what is our culture and heritage. And I went into each of the faiths, and I delved really deep, from the spiritual side, the religious side. And for me, at the end of the day, I think the essence of Indianness is just there's a huge element of self, it's not power, but there's so much strength from people of Indian origin, and I see it day in, day out. Even here, being born in the UK, it's like, maybe because of the amount of struggle we've had, we constantly feel as though we have to over deliver and prove ourselves as a race. Whether that's been a good thing or not, but we have excelled, haven't we, as people from that sort of heritage, in so many ways across this world. But it's like a default within us. It's like we always constantly have to feel that we have to be excelling and doing prominently well, isn't it? Without actually learning to love and nurture ourselves. So I'm going to take a pause there. Otherwise, Rajan, I think I could just go on and on. I did say I'm from Scotland.
No, I think it's really interesting, because if we fast forward to where you are now, you've taken, and one thing that I find incredibly interesting is you're in the coaching space and you're actually helping people in a very good way, in the sense of saying, okay, let's help you become the best version of you. But you haven't done it in your traditional business manner, which a lot of people do. They wake up one day and say, I know what, I'm going to become a life coach. They haven't necessarily lived a life, and now they're almost a blind leading the blind. But what you've come from a very deep place of hurt, of pain, of having to forcefully understand who you are, your position mentally in society, and then also taking ownership and saying, actually, this is who I want to emerge to be. And not only have you done that, but you've also had to go through some of the really difficult situations. Again, you faced cancer not once, but twice.
Yeah.
And along that journey, it's taught you a very different spot of what it means to be human. And maybe run us through that element of things.
It's interesting you said about yes. So I'm presenting myself as a coach or an individual who can support another individual, isn't it, to experience more happiness and joy and prosperity, or however you want to call it. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I know it's not as if I set off in life saying one day, I'm going to be a coach. This is my destination, and I'm going to create it and then just function with it. It is something that I believe there's a huge there's a shift in mindset I'm aspiring to create, I think, by the style of coaching or the way I'm presenting myself to individuals, in that there is no separation between us. Many times when people say they're a coach or you've got a client, or there's an element of superiority, isn't there? There's an element where there's an individual, one of us is in need and somebody else has something more to give to that individual to fill them up. That's a way of thinking that I'd like to disrupt, to be honest with you. Each of us are forever feeding one another, aren't we? There's no end point to learning and growth. And my understanding of being a coach is the lived experience I have had, however small or big they are, however deep they have been. There's that amount of experience which will not be picked up, like you said, in a course or in a manual or in a video, etc. And there's that element of adaptability and capability that I've acquired through those experiences, which can be shared, isn't it, to somebody else to empower them, should they either be going through that situation or they could in the future. I love that thought process. It's how I've evolved as a person. It's how I learn. It's how I respond and function in the world. I'm not being, as much as I've been to a university, as much as I've done courses, I've done certifications in elements of coaching. I've done NLP, I've done, just not for the sake of you have to become certified in order to be a coach, but because I wanted to feed my mind and I wanted to stretch it and play with it, and understand what's out there. But then what I did I kind of tell people that I've got a PhD from the University of Life. I kind of, I mapped my experiences, and I blended them and I merged them until they, something within me felt, this feels like something tangible that could be shared with someone that would equip them to be able to improve their situation and circumstances. So again, I don't even wish I'd have to badge it under the word coaching. It's really strange, isn't it? Because again, we feel, like you said, we have to conform and compartmentalize ourselves all the time to be understood. But I suppose it's just how we communicate in the world, isn't it? Through words and communication. But yeah, it's more that I present myself as an individual who has whatever experience I've got, and whatever knowledge I've got. And if there's a way I can synchronize with somebody, and leave them in a better state, or enable them to access a better state and vibration and feelings, then it brings satisfaction to me. That's how I'm functioning, and that's how I'm presenting myself. And I think because, like you touched on, I've been through cancer and I've been through other issues in my life. For me, the coaching style that I apply is a very holistic, sort of whole person approach. It's not just that you focus on your mind in terms of your mindset. For me, it's about getting some form of coherence between your physical state of wellness, your mental state of wellness, and your emotional wellness. Once you're able to understand those three areas of your existence, and you're able to bring some sort of, balance, should we say, I'll use the word balance, that's when you start to live. That's when you start to access yourself and understand yourself at a cellular level. And then life becomes really, really fun and meaningful, because you start to play around then, don't you? You end up detaching really from the pains and the trials and tribulations, to realizing that, wow, I'm actually a powerful being. There's so much more to me. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers.
No, it makes absolute sense, because I think one thing that's the mission of your life and what the field is, it is to uplift and to empower people.
Yeah.
And we always like to say the word, to give a voice to the voiceless. You nearly lost your voice, and so therefore you hold on to it much more dearly, because you understand the impact that it has. And now all of a sudden you're using a very empowered situation that you're in to say, let me use this as a force for good. One thing I've always admired about you is that it's never been about business. It's never been about, here's a financial gain. It's much deeper than that, because you realize the fragility that is to human form.
Yes, absolutely.
And you only kind of get that when you are close to death, when you are close to losing it all. Absolutely. And that's where that clarity comes in.
Absolutely. I mean, just 2 points. What you said. There's the irony you mentioned. Yes, with conviction, I'm trying to utilize, the gift of my voice, as my biggest strength. But believe it or not, as I was growing up in school, every year in primary school and whatnot, my parents would go for my parents' evening, and they'd say, "Yeah, yeah, top of the class, but she likes to talk." So I would wait at home anxiously for Dad, to come home, because, as much as us, we were like trophy children, myself and my brother, we had to excel in everything. We played tennis till national level. I learned classical Indian dance. I was the tick box trophy daughter. But when he'd come home, there would not be this complete full smile, and I'd start getting nervous, and he'd say, "Yeah, but it's just the talking part." And you know what? Deep, deep, deep down within me, there was this little thing where I think I wasn't cursing the world, but I'm saying, "Do you know what? I'll show you one day. It'll be my voice that will take me to places." So I don't know whether subconsciously I've attracted all of this, because as a kid I was saying, but and as I aged, many times I was condemned and criticized for that very voice. So for me, there's a huge emotional release here, knowing that very aspect of where I was condemned or perhaps suffocated, it's that very element of me that's liberating not just myself, but many others. And it's just wonderful. We just don't get it sometimes in life, isn't it? How one experience from many, many times ago, etc., has so much significance later on in our life.
Absolutely.
If we chose, like you said, to unravel with it, which is really, really interesting. But yeah, it is. It's an interesting time,
I
and
think it's
it wasn't just twice. It was 3 times I've been fortunate to still have this voice, because first cancer spell of thyroid cancer happened when I was 21, where I had a full thyroidectomy. So they realized again, this cancer had spread across the thyroid gland, so they took the whole thyroid out at that age. And one of the highest risks were losing my voice. I didn't know this because my late father was an ENT surgeon, an ear, nose and throat surgeon. And being his child, and it was his hospital and his department, he actually maneuvered me in and out of that whole experience without me even knowing I was going in for surgery for cancer. Can you believe it? I was studying law at the time, Rajan, so there's this thing called informed consent, but the Indian dad took over, and obviously to protect the mindset perhaps of his daughter and whatnot, didn't share. He just said, "Oh, you've just got a couple of nodules in your neck, just a small thing, they'll take it out." And I came out with a whole organ being removed from my body. My dad had secretly, because I used to do a lot of devotional singing, I used to sing bhajans quite actively because I was part of a spiritual organization. And my dad had started recording my voices for 3 weeks prior to the operation, but he didn't tell me. And then one day, I think he was struggling to handle the emotion because he knew what his daughter was about to go through. Somehow I said to my mom, "So why is he recording my voice? This is starting to freak me out. That's just not normal behavior." It wasn't until after that first surgery that I was then told there was such a high risk that you could lose your voice, etc., etc. So that was the first time, like you said, I started to appreciate my voice more. But I had neck surgery obviously in December once I found out about my recurrence, and then I've just had it 2 weeks ago. So not once, not twice. When I went in for neck surgery this time, I was already down to one vocal cord apparently, which I only found out 2 weeks before going in for surgery. So this voice is just miraculously here. So I think I have an utmost, devoted duty to have to use it for the sole purpose of helping others. There's just no question about it, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the thing, because how often do we really appreciate what our duty is as custodians of people on this planet? It's not about a perceived ethnicity. It's not about a perceived race. We're all human beings. It's not about a perception of saying whose religion's better. It's actually saying we're all the same species. We're here. And like the bacteria on the thumb doesn't see the bacteria on the toe, we're part of the same system.
Absolutely.
So if we take it on that vantage point, it's saying, well, what can we do that can deeply benefit one another, not for just a financial model, but also in terms of pure growth, to actually make sure that everybody excels. Because then as a community, if we did more together, a community of over 1.3 billion people,
wow,
towards becoming an army of positive change, just imagine how many more people be using their voice, not because of the fear of cancer or thyroid, but because of the duty that they have, the civic duty to say, I too need to help contribute towards the world in a better place. One thing, Omita, honestly, you are, for me, you're absolutely brilliant. Your brilliance shines through because you're so passionate and enthused with everything that you do. And it's quite remarkable because when we speak, there's things that you are involved in, that we're involved in, and thinking, I'm on the bloody twilight zone. This is
Yeah,
remarkable.
absolutely.
What is it that inspires you? What is that beating heart underneath it all that you think, if I were to go tomorrow, this is what I want to be able to do? But on the other side, what is that fear of the unknown that you are yet to step into, that you know is around the corner?
Answering your first question, where I think, if this was my last day, if I had to go tomorrow, what would I want to do? I don't ask that question anymore now because I'm doing it. I'm fearlessly, I'm being, like you said, I'm being so authentic and true in my spoken word and behavior wherever I go. See, I don't see life or the day as my professional day and my personal day. I wake up saying, I'm breathing and I am alive, and there is a day. And I consciously and openly say to the universe, because I'm a firm believer that, we're in a universe made of, that everything is energy, that there is higher forces, there's higher consciousness, etc. And there's so many words and ways and we can describe that, isn't it? But for me, I believe there is something far bigger surrounding us. I'm not going to say out with us, because we are a part of that far biggerness, aren't we? I'll use that word biggerness for today. Yeah, we'll use it just for the Global Indian series. And for me, to be honest with you, I consciously open myself to being an instrument and, a cooperative component in being able to, embrace some of that light, and to be honest with you, shine it so bright. Because like you said before, when you've experienced pain and isolation, and there were moments, and I will openly say this, Rajan, there was times where, I think there was a time when I went through my divorce and I was on my own with my daughter, where I did want to give up. I did. And it was my child. It was the blessing that I've had with my daughter. She has been a constant force of light, and she has inspired me to rediscover not just what life is, but that life is a gift to me and that I'm a gift for life. From the moment she's been born, she is the only being who has wholly accepted me for who I am. And I think that's the thing about, and this is going into the topic of parenting, and a request I would put out to every parent, and especially those of Indian origin. There's always an element of expectation in our cultural upbringing, isn't there? Sometimes that, even from a religious perspective, we're encouraged that, yes, our parents are the equivalent to God, etc., and we have a duty to serve, etc. But do you know what? We are not doing our children any favor. Our children come into our life to enrich us, to liberate us, and to remind us of what the essence of joy and love is. And when I went through that phase where honestly I didn't know if I can carry on, this being obviously was there for a reason, for me, my beautiful child. And I rediscovered life. I rediscovered the meaning of life. I rediscovered what love was. I started to understand what worth was. But more importantly, I embraced the fact that I was entitled to it, because all I had done all my life was felt that others are entitled to it. Since I was a child, my mum, my father would know, I would feel so much empathy for others going through pain. When I was a child and I'd see another child, if they didn't have shoes on, or if they're going through pain, I would cry, literally. I was very emotionally driven, it was very, what do you want to call it, a clairsentient, I was an empath from a very young age. And I always did kind of social philanthropical efforts. Apparently, since I was a child, I'd save up my pocket money and say to my dad when we went back to the village, can I buy some biscuits and clothes for the children in the school? And I'd feel so much peace even when I was a child myself. And it is phenomenal. The way, to have this experience right now and share this, the biggest thing for me is in understanding my purpose is that the pain we go through is to alleviate the pain in another. It's as simple as that. We're going through our pain for purpose. That pain is powering us to understand and discover more of what we are capable of. And like you said, it's how we leverage that pain without getting attached to it too much. And now I can say this comfortably, but there was a point where I would have never understood that phenomenon and what those words meant. That there's, and like you said, it's I think it's taking the Indian roots and the mechanical understanding of religion and culture and really redefining and repositioning it within myself so that I can, like you said, step into this world as a powerful person and a powerful being, From a Hindu context, we talk about the Vedas and Brahman and, consciousness, etc. We say that we're embodiments of love. The Jyot is within your heart, the light is within you, but just how much do we fully comprehend that on a daily basis?
Absolutely.
The body is that we say people mechanically go to a temple or a gurdwara, or they go to the masjid, etc. But how much do we worship this very body which carries us every day throughout this, and it's just like you said, we have a duty to fully understand and appreciate, the physical body, the mind and the heart and the soul. And again, it's our interpretations, isn't it? And how religion and spirituality is being presented as well. I think I would love to disrupt that way of thinking that other human beings, again, have any element of superiority over another. We are inspiring one another from a context all the time, and it doesn't matter how long a word or how short a word you use, how well spoken you are. Communication happens in so many ways, doesn't it? And I think what we need to do, which I think has phenomenally drawn me to you and what the Global Indian series is aspiring to do, is about really understanding what does oneness mean, and just bringing it down to that really basic fundamental level. There is divinity, there is God, there is love, there is consciousness in each and every one of us, regardless of what we have and haven't done, isn't it? When we say the good and the bad, I don't believe there's good and bad. I just believe that everything is. We associate, isn't it, an emotion.
Absolutely.
And as an Indian, to get to this point in thinking, I feel has been a breakthrough for me based on the conditioning I've experienced, from my own.
It's a shame though, on the other side, because this was our nomadic behavior as people of Indian origin. Wherever we are, 5, 6, 7 generations deep, the very essence of who we are as human beings, as people, has always been around those elements. It is about sharing. It is about connectivity. It is about the divinity that is just outside, but within us. We are these remarkable beings, but somehow through life we tricked ourselves to give up on that power of presence. And that's the sad part. And then somehow through life, those unknowingly, but not from a malice point of view, thought, let me seek to take control because I feel that my life lacks control. So therefore I shall now put a gender towards a certain level, or an ism towards somebody else, or a classism for something else. And all of that sparked from fear, not because it was a necessity, but because of fear. And now we're making almost like a 360, that we're arriving back at the spot that we have always truly been as people of Indian origin, to say, we're very liberal. The reason why whatever religion or denomination that you feel part of, the reason why the emphasis was there was to allow you to plunge into the human endeavor, the human experience of what can you do as you? What is possible? Don't mix it up with the interpretations of this modern day culture that we have now reignited because of a sense of duty of traditionalism. Because that's a stupidity. The reality is what you said, it's coming round, and you're an inspired thinker, Omita. What you have achieved, what you have done, and the purpose of your life is so clear because you allowed yourself, like what your recent post was, it's not about just taking the hits, but learning from it and maneuvering around it like a precision fighter, to say, I've recognized it, I've seen it, now I know when to dodge, I know when to move, I know how to pivot. But more importantly, I'm doing it not out of self-protection, but because I know better. What will be your top 3 tips then to women out there listening to this, people that have gone through divorce, or people that have gone through some of the most spectacular forms of deep depression, to say, hey, you too can make this happen?
I mean, I think the first and foremost thing that I would want to say to, I'll say, my fellow sisters out there and all the women, etc., is that right now, in this moment, you are enough. Exactly the way you are, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're doing, whatever you are, it's exactly where you need to be, because it's showing you either more of what you do want or what you don't want. So it's the first tip is try and become conscious and aware of actually where you are, because a lot of the time we want to shut that out because of the pain, isn't it, and the association that we're feeling. So it's actually just being a little bit kinder to yourself and saying, okay, just, like you said, like you're a huge advocate of deep breathing, isn't it, and allowing ourselves to become present in this moment, is just literally breathe into your now and accept that I'm here for a reason and there is purpose here, because we have to go through contrast, we have to go through the cloudiness in order to appreciate and understand what even clarity is. You don't get direction otherwise without it, do you? You just don't. So it's like you said, I say this to many people, and I've done it, my posts and coaching, it's about widening your lens of perception of this world and life. But it all comes down, and you'll know that it comes down to self-worth, doesn't it, Rajan? It comes down to how much we believe we deserve it. And whether we believe we deserve pain or whether we believe we deserve pleasure. And I can say this with conviction because I've transitioned through that. There was a phase where I didn't believe I was worth it. I wanted to believe I was worth it. And there was inner turmoil, isn't it? Because so much around me, people's voices, people's opinions, what the world was saying, isn't it, was just hitting so hard to inform my thinking that I wasn't worthy, I wasn't deserving, because this is what you did, or this is who you now are. For instance, like when I went through my divorce, there was reactions from individuals just because the label divorce is that, well, women who live on their own are women of a certain kind, coming from people who I have just been there for and given utmost respect to. And honestly, some of those blows could have really knocked me off. But again, I was fortunate to have had a child, and knowing that, I think the thing that anchored me is that I realized that from this child to blossom and be nurtured well to become a healthy and happy human being, I had an opportunity to display that behavior and emotion in front of her so that it could condition her in a positive way. So that kind of really anchored me to have to want to heal and discover who I am. So it worked really well. But yeah, the first thing is accepting that you are enough in this given moment, etc. I think to anybody going through any adversity or turmoil. And the second thing is go easy when you make the choice that you realize that you want things to change. What we also tend to do is suddenly when, like you said, we may have a moment of realization or, clarity that, okay, I am going to change things now, I'm going to make things happen. But then we put so much pressure to have to change the situation so drastically, isn't it? We're almost again in conflict with the whole choice to want to make change. It's learning to really sort of, it's learning to love yourself, isn't it? It's learning to be kinder to yourself, to love yourself, to allow each moment to unfold, whether it is pain or pleasure, etc., and just learn to sort of understand what, who we are, how we're functioning, and how we're thinking. And then I think the third thing, immediately there, so accepting that you're enough. Secondly, just taking it easy when you've decided you want to make the change is. Now, it's interesting that people say reach out for help. I'd love to raise this point today. A lot of people say build a support network. Support networks are so important, aren't they? Make sure you've got the right people around you. Sometimes you don't have access to that. And I can say this again with conviction. I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anybody that got me. I didn't have a support network, and I intentionally picked this. I was the one who decided to get a divorce, to pick my 1-year-old baby girl up, to travel all the way from Scotland and pick a city I didn't have any family in. I intentionally did that because I wanted to undo the conditioning and start fresh and build something new. Yeah, I was criticized for it. At the same time, what are you doing? You need a support network. But I would rather know that the support network or any individuals I have around me are going to feed me to build the new that I really deserved and needed to have. Otherwise, I was content just being in my own company, to be honest with you. So the third thing I would say is, I know some people say find the right people, build a support network. Don't put pressure on yourself to do that. You are your own biggest support network. I will say this in life. It's yes, of course, if you have the right people around you, whether it's even one person or 5 or 6, of course it's an added bonus. You enjoy the journey a little bit more, but do not underestimate your own personal potential. Do not underestimate just how capable you are. So they're kind of 3 things I think I would say in this first instance without taking up, too much time at this moment in time. So I hope that's
I think it's brilliant. I think, do you know what, to just add on, because I know that's what you mean. It's not learning to love yourself, it's learning that we do love ourselves. We put ourselves through tough love, don't we? It is absolutely crazy. We have these episodes of self-doubt. We have these episodes where we don't trust that inner voice. But when we stop and we deeply listen and we deeply breathe, we start feeling who we are. And that's what comes through. And at that moment, that clarity happens. I know we had a conversation before about oneness, and it is about saying all of a sudden when you're slowly unmoored from what you think is normal,
Yeah.
perceptions, culture indoctrination, and you're in the middle of the ocean and you're there, you no longer feel fear, you feel acceptance because you realize I am one, I'm there, I'm in and amongst it. And there's a deeper level of trust that comes when you just literally stop, close, and listen. Like Amita, I'm looking so forward to doing a lot more things with you. Obviously,
Yes.
you're joining on with the global Indian movement that we have here to make sure that we can do a lot more things. I think your life for me is one of the most inspirational ones so far, for the fact of, again, in the run up to this, I know we kind of spoke about it off air, was we had these 12 remarkable videos that plunges you, me, the entire community into the human experience of what if. You know,
Yeah.
you did these remarkably brave videos for us 12 days prior to your third operation to remove cancer, knowing that, I know we kind of joked about it, but in a real deep way was, you know, I wasn't quite sure if we are capturing those last moments of you. You know, there's part of us that we're speaking, and we're speaking in the morning pretty early, talking it through. But then when the videos come in, you're thinking, there's that hesitancy, there's something there that you feel it, that there's that 2-3% that you're just wondering what if. And that's remarkably brave.
And do you
And
know
it's
what?
remarkably generous of you.
No, and the funny thing is, this is, it's not something you want to change, a shift I want to do in healthcare. That's a podcast in itself. You know, when you're engaging and interacting, because I do a lot of work with the NHS, so it's something that I'm very passionate about. But when you're engaging and interacting with clinicians, etc., it's interesting when they give you a diagnosis and a prognosis. You know, the
Yeah.
vocabulary that they use can either set a patient up for the journey that's coming or not.
Yeah.
And again, I think somebody who advocates empowered patients, you know, and how to improve the patient experience pathway. I was able to diffuse and dilute some of those words that were presented to me every time I
Yeah.
went for an appointment, you know, so that it didn't disable my flow of.
Absolutely. Because we forget words have a huge emotional impulse.
Exactly. But I'll share with you, Rajan, the risks for this surgery. So this has been the biggest operation I've had on my neck. I mean, you can't see it now, but literally my scar runs from the back of my left ear right down to the middle of my throat. So it looks, I know Halloween's coming up. I wouldn't even need to dress up, to be honest with you, if I just turned up at the door. But, the risk when I went in for my appointment, and every appointment I go to, I go on my own. I've always had to, when I go in for my medical appointments, I've just kind of got used to it now. The amount of forms and paperwork when they get you to sign, this is the risk for this. So the risks of this operation was extensive bleeding, which you get with any kind of surgery, etc. and whatnot. Don't forget, we had COVID going on right now as well. So had I contracted COVID as well, so it wasn't even just you're going in for cancer, you're going for an operation. We've got COVID to maneuver through as well on top of this. There was the risk of me obviously losing whatever limited vocal capability I've got right now, because I'm down to one vocal cord anyway. And he said the risks were high. And then there was the fact that because of its removal of the lymph glands of the left side, you know, there could be damage that I would need a tracheostomy straight away. So there's so much that they were prepared for when I came out of surgery. And it was just under 6 hours of surgery. I didn't know it was this big myself. I didn't realize it was going to be 6 hours. When the anaesthetist was telling me just before, so I said, I need to let my daughter know once I come out, what time can I call her? She goes, well, you'll be in here for about 6 hours. I said, 6 hours of surgery? Okay, I didn't realize it. But literally, as I went in, you're right, I didn't know and for my daughter, because she was on her own, you know, I didn't, we tried to keep it as light as possible. You know, I said, I'll see you soon and whatnot, to help her, you know, mentally deal with it. But you're absolutely right. There was a possibility. I mean, I hadn't told my family. My family members did not know that I was going through this, because my mom has health conditions and she's had a lot of anxiety, and with COVID and whatnot, to be honest with you, it just wouldn't have helped her, and vice versa. And I have an elder brother and sister-in-law, but they live all the way up in Scotland. And with COVID again, because of the restrictions, we had to be in isolation, you know, for being prepped before surgery. Again, we were very limited with the support we could have, you know, in the house before and after. So I was being reeled in. I could have not come out of the operation. I could have come out in all sorts of shapes and forms. I could have easily come out not being able to speak. I could have lost my movement in my shoulder. I could have lost movement in my tongue, my left lip, because of the nerves that they're all working on. At the moment, I've still got some nerve damage, you know, to my left shoulder, etc., and whatnot to neck. But the fact that I'm breathing and being able to fully experience every moment right now is just, honestly, it's just, I thought I was a grateful person before. But you know what? Gratitude, I will say, is an endless well. You just can't have enough of it. You just cannot. It doesn't matter how much you go through in life, you will forever keep becoming more and more and more grateful, because you just really start to realize just how phenomenal the gift of life really is. You know, just how incredible the human body is. I mean, we are just a super machine. You know, you just can't. Can you comprehend? Why do you think we're so hungry as scientists and individuals to always learn, isn't it? We're forever trying to comprehend and to work it out. We're not going to. It's just so incredible. It's just so magnificent, isn't it? But I think coming down to, again, what Global Indian, what these conversations is about, it's about just getting to as much of the core in each and every moment and making it as meaningful as possible, isn't it? Just that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? It really does. And
It's
yeah,
almost like popping a bubble. You got people walking around, you got this figurative bubble around you, and you're
yeah,
thinking, this is how the world is.
yeah,
And all of a sudden, when it's popped, then you see the vibrancy, then you see the colors, then you feel the wind, then you feel the emotion. And it is
exactly,
such a beautiful place to be, because now you're living. And
absolutely,
that moment then is when you take a deep breath in and you can smell all the senses. It's the greatest prayer in the world can only be found when you're walking in nature, when you're actually forced to delve within yourself. It can't be anything else out there. But you're right, we forget how wonderful it is to be alive. It's a privilege to be here. It's our pure luck that we're born in the gender, and we're pure luck in the religion or culture, whatever it is. That's not out of that's not in our control, regardless of what people say. And people speak many different languages and many different ways to explain what this feeling is. And people are going to continue doing that. But the reality is, when you're here and you can feel it for yourself, not because of the prayers of others, but because of your own personal feel to want to enjoy it, man, that's when you're alive. That's when you feel it. That's when you get that buzz of energy, because then you realize you would never want to exchange this for anything else. Like your life, you look back at it now and you think, is there any time that I want to exchange, even in the hardest parts? Chances are you wouldn't. Think, I learned from that. I got a feel from that. I now know who I am because of those things. And your mindset, Amita, is perfect, because you're saying, well, what do I do with that? Do I just take it on for me? Or do I share those experiences to others to say, look, I'm not here to guide you away from those situations. It's going to happen regardless of it is. If it's not, it'll be something else. If it's not a divorce, it'll be something else. But just know that there's mechanisms to take place, that you can actually enjoy yourself still at this moment in time and not hold yourself because of what's taken place. That is the power of what you bring into the world, in my opinion.
yeah. And that's exactly what I want to do, is taking the seriousness out of life. Literally. And it's funny because you put a post up this morning with one of your gorgeous little children, your young boy, and how he was peeping into his mummy's hair. And you know what? The way for us to really simplify it, if we see children, if we're fortunate to have either children in our household or we come across them in the day and whatnot, what more apt educators, and guides can we have, where they are literally showing us how to fully embrace every moment? I mean, I think your son was having a moment of true exploration in mom's hair, like you said. But we can, this is the thing, and we, again, even for our children, we dilute and their joy so much, don't we, by imposing what our understanding of the world is as soon as they come into it, instead of allowing them to free flow and allow us to catalyze our curiosity again and our imagination. But they know how to live, isn't it? When they're upset, when they're happy, they're so happy. They're just fully embracing every moment to moment. And there's so much we can take for them. So you're absolutely right. I think it's knowing that, life will flow. Again, we've used words, haven't we? We've talked about, oh, let's talk about your situation or circumstances, Omita. If I had a choice, when I interact with people, I don't even want to say there's adversities or there's joys or celebrations. There's this journey, isn't it, that we're going through.
Yeah.
And like you said, that there's a way for you to be able to make that journey as tantalizing, as mesmerizing, as exciting as you want it. At the end of the day, what does every human being want? We want to feel good in some way. We want to feel elevated or excited or taken to another level in some shape or form, isn't it? For some, it's through violence. For some, it's through creation. For some, it doesn't matter. The fact is, you're looking for another state and experience, aren't you? So it's bringing it back down to that simple thing that you are a conscious creator of those states. Choose well.
What a fantastic point to finish on. It's choose well. Absolutely, choose well. What is going to be your experience of this planet going to be? We often use a social lubricant of an ism to define who we are, the identity that's inside, and we almost draw every experience externally from that visor saying, well, this is who I'm supposed to be, this is what society has told me, this is what culture told me, this is what my choice of ism told me to do. But we forget that this is a brutally and wonderfully fantastic experience just to be alive. And so if we start to remove ourselves from social expectations or the expectations we place on ourselves because of a lack of understanding of what this planet truly offers, well, we're always going to be stuck. I hope you enjoyed this session. Make sure you join us next Wednesday. Every Wednesday we come out with a new podcast, inspiring conversations that provide purpose, passion, and a sense of community. Again, if you like what we do, show the love. Make sure you like, you subscribe, and you share. Because with your help, we get to bring together our community one conversation at a time. Take care for now.